Hey guys, it's me manshuk. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's talk about how companies spy on their employees, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful to know as I've been working under such systems for a while and I want to share this with you guys. As usual, like and subscribe. It's not a surprise that employee tracking during the day has witnessed a large increase recently, and to be clear, prior to the pandemic, approximately 10% of companies used this type of software. However, since the start of the pandemic, over half of the companies have acquired something similar to track their staff working remotely. And I'm really curious if companies fully understand the path that they have chosen, and I wonder who is driving all this inside those corporations. But I have to admit that employees in the IT industry, warehousing, banking, and perhaps healthcare would regard it as normal, even if it was rather intrusive in the past. And most of us who don't work in either of those industries took electronic surveillance for granted to capture our everyday activities. But even though we were under surveillance before, it wasn't so obvious, at least to us. As long as data is in the right hands and interpreted the right way, I'm fine with data collection for improvement or training purposes. But the data is good only when it's aggregated, summing up the whole efficiency during the period, like 1 month, like 1 quarter, like a year before the pandemic evaluation, for example. I think, except for the fact that employers use this information to track your attendance or our attendance, but some tracking software actually takes screenshots of the screen on a regular basis, and I mean every 5 to 10 minutes. And some software can even track your listening habits, facial expressions, and voice tone and writing tone throughout the day. And essentially, I think this is identical to a stalker's behavior. So would you be comfortable if, for example, you would know that someone is watching you as you type your email, and then you erased it, and then you paraphrased it, and then you decided to unsend it? Would you be comfortable if your boss could see all the drafts that you've been preparing, you've been working on during the day? Software developing companies advise their clients, aka employers, that they can stop employee procrastination, and companies can finally end micromanaging their employees so they can say goodbye to inefficiency, disloyalty, and poor performance. But meanwhile, ignoring things like burnout, stress, and intrusion into personal lives. And I'm really curious if the same software predicts turnover costs as well as analyzes employees' emotions and diminishing employees' trust levels. And I'm sure there is room for development for those software, but it's kind of creepy in the beginning. Okay, let's see now what common employee tracking software does. So common tracking software, the biggest ones on the market, track your activities throughout the day, including how you spend your time, whether it was efficient or not, and how many emails you sent, how many phone calls you received, you answered, and what you said. So the information is transcribed and recorded and then presented as reports with a detailed 10-minute increment. And the system calculates what percentage of time the workers spend typing or moving a computer mouse. And this percentage serves as a productivity metrics. So as an experiment, this is how a productive day looked like for a New York Times Magazine journalist who was asked to work as if he didn't know he's been tracked. So as a result, the tracking software showed that this employee spent 3 hours, 35 minutes revising one document. He spent 1 hour researching a topic and 1.5 hours responding to his emails. 35 minutes were spent on Twitter, 11 minutes on Spotify and Slack, and whooping 10 minutes were spent ordering pizza. And this is something employers paid him to do, by the way. But what is more interesting is that this employee thought that this was one of his most productive days that he had. In reality, he worked just 4 hours, and he would know that in the end of the day, or maybe when his manager calls him and asks why he worked for 4 hours instead of 8 hours, and actually he would be paid accordingly. Finally, the software added a productivity score to his day that was slightly lower than what was anticipated from this employee by his manager. There was another case when a salesman stated that while his job requires him to visit clients and sign agreements as a result of those ongoing encounters, his GPS detected him walking around a park, and also it detected him going to the wine shop and playing with his kids during the day when he didn't have clients meetings. In reality, these productivity dashboards annoy me because they don't capture small individual but very critical facts, such as how much time employees spend preparing for a meeting or brainstorming without touching their keyboards, and how much time each individual requires for a mental pause or refocus or re-energize, or when they get back to their creative mode and innovation mode again. And now my main concern is that many CEOs are happy to install whatever software they can afford because it's also expensive. And as remote work grows in popularity, it appears that this intrusive tracking would become our normal unless suitable laws are enacted to defend our fundamental freedoms, but this will be only in the future. If your employer requests that you install monitoring software on your personal device, request a work-provided device if possible. And know that if you use remote desktops such as Citrix, Splashtop, and TeamViewer, everything you do within the applications window appear on the computer, on your workspace. So this means that the IT department and corporate executives by request have the same level of computer access as they would in a physical office. Now let's take a quick look at the legislation that we have today. In a nutshell, yes, it is legal. Employers in the United States have significant powers to monitor their employees' activity during the day if it's company's equipment. And your employer, on the other hand, is required to notify you and obtain your consent to be observed. And please don't ignore these messages once you receive it. And also, any software may unintentionally collect sensitive information such as medical and your banking information, as well as your location. So be careful if you use the software, because we don't know yet who's gonna get their hands to your data. Some jobs, without a doubt, require monitoring for security, compliance, financial, and intellectual property reasons. But these softwares don't have to monitor everything, and therefore ask your employer what data is being collected on you and how it will be utilized in the future. If you don't have this information as an employee, it's worth asking your boss, your HR department, or your IT department to introduce you to the company policy. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope it was helpful. Like and subscribe, write comments, press the bell not to miss my future videos. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.